So thank you so much for joining this webinar. My name is Dolinda Cavallo, Project Manager ENoLL. Today webinars will be about consideration for applicants to the Living Labs topic of the SOILL Mission SOILL Work Program 2024. Let's see who will be the speaker of today's webinar. Myself, as I said, Dolinda Cavallo, Project Manager ENoLL, European Network of Living Labs. We are going to have the pleasure to host Paola Eulalio from DG Agri, a policy officer at DG Agri, Maria José Amaral, Research Program Manager at REA, and Giulia Campodonico, Head of Projects at ENoLL and Coordinator of the SOILL Startup Project. What we'll be discussing today. So we're going to have a first welcoming and some housekeeping rules. Then we're going to have the presentation of Paola Eulalio about the state of play of the Mission SOILL and update on the Living Lab topics, understanding the criteria for setting up Living Labs lighthouses according to the Mission SOILL. Then Maria José Amaral will explain, will give us a guidance for a good Living Lab proposals. And then we're going to have the presentation of Giulia Campodonico, who will explain the SOILL Startup Project and the support that provides to the funded SOILL Health Living Labs and Lighthouses. We're going to conclude this presentation part with the explanation of the support provided by the NATI00NS project for applicants. And then we're going to have some times for the question and answers. Some housekeeping rules. So as you can see in the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A box where you can submit your questions. We have already collected some questions by you through the registration form, and we're going to address some of them at the end of the presentations. Still, you can submit additional questions that maybe can rise during the presentation. As an important something to keep in mind, it will not be possible to answer to specific questions related to your individual proposal. But if you have doubts about the criteria, about the application process, understanding the work program, well, this is the moment to answer your questions. And when possible, and if possible, if time will allow us, we will address them at the end of the presentations. Then during the registration form, you also gave the consent to receive updates and information from NATI00NS and other initiatives related to the EU Mission SOILL. It is important to remember that you have the right to withdraw this consent, and to do so, you can send an email to the info@nations.eu. And finally, this event is recorded. So the idea is to publish this event on the NATI00NS website so that in case you need to review and rewatch the content presented, it will be still possible. And then finally, this webinar is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike. So this is why there is this disclaimer, and it's not possible to reuse or change the content of the webinar, but still these slides will be shared and will be possible to access them through the NATI00NS website. So I will now, we can start now with the first presentation. I'm going to leave the floor to Paola Eulalio, Policy Officer at DG Agri, about the state of play of the SOILL mission and update on the Living Lab topics. So we'll now understand the criteria to set up a Living Lab and how what are the definition, and understand what is important to know to set up and living labs and lighthouses according to the SOILL mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolinda, for this introduction, and good morning, everyone. So indeed, as Dolinda said, I will walk you through these points about the mission soil. So the first slide, let's go directly to the first slide, just to introduce the mission state of play. So what we always say is that the mission soil is really the right instrument at the right time. And we believe this is very accurate if we look at all the ecosystem services that soils provide to us, which are completely essential for our life. They not only provide our food, but also they host biodiversity, they purify our water, and they regulate water. They cycle nutrients, they store carbon, which in turn also affects climate regulation, and they support, of course, all other type of human activities. So soils are essential, but anyhow, they are still very under threat. So the EU, the USO, so the Soil Observatory from the GRC, the Joint Research Center, has estimated that around 62% of our soils are in bad conditions. So this means that they cannot deliver these vital ecosystem services. So the dashboard, you can see here at the right-hand side of the slide, you have a link to the USO dashboard. It's really a very interesting site to visit. So it highlights, if you go to the details, what you see is that you have the extent and the locations of these soils that are in unhealthy conditions in the EU. So the slide here shows a convergence map, convergence of evidence map, which combines degradation indicators with erosion and pollution. So there have been some latest updates to the site. We now have 19 indicators of soil health, which are very relevant for our projects under the mission, and very relevant as well to the Living Lab projects. So I think that the information from the USO is recommended to be used as much as possible by the Living Labs that will be set in the EU. For instance, they will be super useful to establish baselines for actions in the Living Labs, or they can also be useful for setting up the Living Labs on those areas identified as really being unhealthy. So in the next slide, I go a bit further, thank you, on what is the mission soil, or how does it really work. So, it is not alone trying to protect our soils, but it's part of a robust framework for soil protection. And this framework is also integrated by, so the mission soil is like the funding or a funding element, and the other two are the USO, so what I have just explained, which is the data reservoir, the long-term data reservoir, and the knowledge hub of soils. And the third piece is the policy piece. So in fact, the mission soil contributes to many policies. The list is very long, but the most important is, of course, the soil monitoring law. And about it, I would like to update you, because the soil monitoring, so the law is still in a proposal state. We know that it has been discussed in the parliament in last April, and the parliament adopted a positive opinion, or positive position, and now it was at council state. And yesterday, 17th of June, the council has reached also a general approach on this soil monitoring law, which means that is positive. So I think we are in the right track, or in the good pathway towards healthy soils by 2050. Just to see what's next with this law, note that negotiations will now just start under the new legislative cycle, but we don't have any dates yet defined. So in the next slide, we go back to our mission soil. What we have is a summary of the aims and the objectives. So the aim of the mission SOILL is setting these 100 living labs and lighthouses to lead the transition towards healthy soils. It is so it will achieve this aim by working through 8 specific objectives, which are in the slide as well, and which are I think everyone is quite familiar with them, but I can read them quickly. So we have desertification, carbon stocks, so conserve carbon stocks, stop sealing of soils, principally in urban soils, reduce soil pollution and enhance its restoration, erosion prevention, biodiversity enhancement through soil structure enhancement, reducing the EU global footprint on soils, and improving soil literacy. And these 8 specific objectives are implemented through 4 operational objectives, which constitute our building blocks. So as you see in the right-hand side of the slide, the Living Labs is only one of these building blocks. It's a main vehicle for addressing the diversity of conditions and generating locally adapted solutions. But there is also the building block of research and innovation programming, for instance, where with all other projects that are being funded under the mission to tackle, as I mentioned, the other all these specific objectives that that reflect the main or the most urgent issues we have to tackle for soils. Then the building block on soil monitoring, very much linked to the USO that we have just seen, and the last building block on soil literacy, which excuse me, which allows for citizens to be more engaged, more aware, and to protect the soils. So for next slide, we can, I would like simply to give an overall view on where we are concerning budget. So the mission SOILL has already invested almost around 300 million euros during the first 3 work programs from 21 to 23. So there are around already 50 projects funded within these 3 work programs, 21, 22, and 23. And under work program 23, we have seen our first Living Labs projects being funded. So there are 5 Living Labs projects that are starting, and they encompass in total around 25 Living Labs that will be start working already now this year. So under work program 24, there is a budget of 134.5 million euros to invest. And the important date we have to retain, if you're an applicant and you want to profit of this opportunity, is 8th of October, which is the closure of the call date. So if we go to next slide, please, we can see which is the state of play of the SOILL mission in terms of projects that have already been funded and that are covering very much the 4 building blocks I explained before. So I would say that from the research and innovation program side, all projects are funded with through our work programs. But what I want to highlight here is that information, data, results from previous projects, for instance, from those coming from Horizon 2020, like SMS projects, so the SOILL mission support, or even bigger programs like EGP SOILL, have also provided very relevant data and information that is now being used by the mission SOILL. So nothing is lost. It's really building on this information. Then from the Living Labs and Lighthouses building block, you can see that we have founded 2 projects, Prep Soil and Nations, that are preparatory actions to pave the way to pave the way, yes, and to facilitate then the Living Labs projects. So I will not go through much into detail about Nations because we have here our colleagues who will extend on that. But we see that we have also from in this until now, and in this building block, we have the first 25 living labs that are now being that are now kicking off, and the support structure SOILL that will coordinate, will support, and will give advice and all type of support to the living labs. On the other two building blocks, you can see there are plenty of projects that have been already funded, that they are ongoing now. And what's the important message we want to pass is that we expect that all these projects cooperate when relevant, of course, between each other. So as I said before, they need to capitalize on results that are being delivered on work that is already ongoing, and the importance of co-adapting or implementing different results adapted to the local context. So the idea is to avoid overlap and with join forces with all these projects in order to obtain a better or greater impact of the mission SOILL. So the next slide is simply to show where we are respect to the 3 phases of development of the Living Labs Lighthouses network according to the mission. We have finished the first phase with the kicking off of these first 25 Living Labs, and we are now starting slowly in phase 2 with Work Program 2024. Which aims at expanding this Living Lab network. So there will be successive calls from now until 2027, so until the end of the mission funding time. And we will be looking for sure to filling these gaps in terms of geographies that have been already covered, or in terms of soil health challenges that are addressed, or mission objectives that are tackled. So we will use as much as possible and as best as possible the successive work programs to cover as much as possible all European countries and associated countries. So my next slide is a bit a reminder that the mission SOILL has launched in April last year a SOILL manifesto. This was done in order to improve stakeholders and citizens in general participation in the mission SOILL activities. It is a non-legal binding document that everyone can sign, so from individuals to organizations. And the idea is to show the commitment or the dedication to this cause, to saving and protecting our soils. So the manifesto has already been quite successful. So far, we're happy to have received almost 3,000 signatures worldwide, which demonstrates the extensive support of our mission. And I just want to invite you all to sign it if you have not done so yet. So now we can pass in the next slide. We can go more into to dive more into what is coming into the Living Lab topics now in Work Program 24. But first, maybe in the next slide, we will review a bit the criteria again of which is the criteria for setting up Living Labs and Lighthouses according to the mission again. So what are Living Labs according to the mission? They are collaborative initiatives to co-create knowledge and innovation. So according to the mission SOILL, Living Labs have to be multi-sited and, of course, multi-actor, with several stakeholders, several actors taking part on the Living Lab activities. The sites of the Living Labs have to be real life sites. So it should be a co-creation of solutions and mechanisms in real life conditions. This is important. The location of the Living Labs is defined as in a regional or sub-regional level. We cover with the mission soil all type of soils. Sometimes we focus a lot into agricultural soils, which is normal, but it's a reminder that urban soils, industrial soils, forests, natural soils, and semi-natural soils are also included in the mission soil. And as I said, the living labs have to co-design, have to test and to monitor the solutions that they propose to soil health, involving all type of stakeholders and of course the end users, and this from the start of the project. On the other hand, we have lighthouses, which we define as individual sites of exemplary performance. This means that they are places or sites that demonstrate some specific activity in an excellent way, so they can serve as a training place, as a networking place, or a communication place. They showcase the good practices, and they are also very useful to upscale solutions. They are places for peer-to-peer learning, for instance, or to give practical advice tools to advisors, which are very important to best inform the end manager of soils. And as well, lighthouses have the particularity to increase the awareness of the importance of soil. So in general, both lighthouses and living labs have the aim to improve soil health, of course. This is the basis, through co-development of methods and solutions that are adapted to specific locations. And like this, we can empower the rapid green transition and scale up uptake of solutions. So in the next slide, we review again a bit what living labs and lighthouses are in terms of what we expect from them. So what we expect from a living lab that will be part of a project, of a soil mission project. So we expect that they co-create solutions, again, adapted to local conditions across the whole Europe. And which are the conditions that have to be considered, not only pedoclimatic conditions, but also social conditions, cultural conditions, and of course, economical conditions. The solutions that they propose are expected to be accessible to all land managers. So it's not only data or solutions, but also the accessibility to them. So they are expected to help identifying also soil management practices, which are the best ones to each condition, again, to each situation. They are expected to provide relevant data on soils. This linked back to the user information we just reviewed. They are supposed to support the law, the policy, the soil monitoring law. They are also supposed to mobilize other funding. And why? Because these other or these further sources of funding will at the end be very useful for their sustainability after the end of the funding from the soil mission. Living labs also improve citizens' awareness because they trigger further positive long-term developments in soil health from citizens. And it is expected that these places involve all type of factors, as we already said, but also those less usual ones. When we talk about agricultural soils, for instance, involving small farmers, or in other type of soils involving SMEs. And this can be, we know it can be quite challenging. And this is why also there is an opportunity to use financial support to third parties to do so. And we will explain a bit later what is the financial support to third parties. And from the lighthouses, it is expected that they demonstrate best practices, that they provide practical tools and material for advisors, as we just said, that they inspire others through peer-to-peer learning, and that they trigger the uptake and the upscale of beneficial practices. So going to the next slide, I want to remind you that there is specific criteria for living labs that has already been developed some time ago under the Mission Soil Implementation Plan. And this has been done to ensure a common approach and a comparability of data and experiences. So living labs, according to the soil mission, are expected to comply with these criteria, covering the aims of the living labs, the activities that they have to perform, the participants that will take place of the activities, and which is the context of the living labs. Same for lighthouses. There is a summary of the criteria, which is based on the exemplary performance in terms of the soil health and related ecosystem services that they are tackling. So all this is very well explained in the implementation plan, and the principles are what we have just reviewed in the previous slides. So I will jump directly to the next slide, where we go in practice to the work program 2024. As you see in the slide, there are 9 topics on the work program 2024 of the Mission SOILL, and the first 2 deal with living labs. So the first 2 are the ones calling for the setting up of living labs, not the other ones. It's not, I mean, it's not mandatory for the other topics to use living labs. So this work program has been opened in May, and remember the deadline for application is 8th of October. So in the next slides, I will describe a bit, so I will not describe in detail the topics because it would be very long, but I will really go to or mention the specific elements that we would like to strengthen about these topics in relation to what has already been published in the previous work program. So if we go to next, yes, it's on this slide. This slide is supposed to cover the bottom-up topic, so the first topic that I just showed, the 0101. And you see that which are the main points of this topic. So as the previous topics and as also the second topic, the projects on living labs is supposed to reunite at least 4 to 5 living labs. And each of these living labs has to be multi-sited, so have several sites. And also multi-actor, so several stakeholders, relevant stakeholders taking place of the activities. So they have to be set up at regional or sub-regional level to address 1 or more land types. And all of them have to address thematically related soil health needs. So it doesn't have to be the same, but of course they have to be thematically related so that there is a logic, and these living labs form really a structural setting that works towards a common goal. There are no administrative or geographical borders of living labs, but as Horizon Europe law demands, at least 3 member states or associated countries have to be involved. So what we would like to highlight is that the living lab or the project of living labs has to choose a realistic combination of soil health challenges to tackle. And when we say realistic combinations, we mean limited combination of the soil health challenges and other variables like soil land types. So this is to focus on a realistic amount and a logical amount of variables. So the Living Labs top projects proposals, have to really explain well the rationale for the Living Lab selection and cooperation. The ultimate goal is always enhancement of soil health, and this, even if it sounds very logic, it has to be clear. They are, and other important points is the establishment of baselines for the selected soil health challenges from the beginning, the baselines. Clearly describing the monitoring framework and the indicators that they will be used. And here I want to link again back to the user information from the beginning of my presentation. Important to involve several disciplines and actors, including small actors, and depending on the type of living lab, these actors will vary. Also, the other element I highlight is the possibility to use financial support to third party to facilitate this small actors engagement. And important proposals have to always think on strategies to ensure their long-term sustainability and demonstrate the economic viability and practicability of the solutions that they are proposing for land managers. So in the next slide, it's I summarize this almost the same kind of information for the second topic on living labs, which is the one on urban areas, so living labs in urban areas for healthy soils. So there are almost only some points that differ because it's a different soil land use, of course, and it is the fact that urban land types of soils are tackled in this case, and therefore the specific objectives that are important are not all of the specific objectives of the mission soil, but particularly the third one, that is no net ceiling, an increase of the reuse of urban soils. The number 4 about reducing soil pollution and enhancing restoration. The number 5 about erosion, and the common one for almost all topics, the 8 of increasing soil literacy. So the objective of these of the proposals under this topic have to be really increasing the soil so soil health in urban areas, and with this the resilience of urban areas. And also it's important to consider, if possible, to provide with the solutions that this living lab will this project of living labs will co-create solutions to provide locally sourced fresh or healthy food to local food services, because this is very linked to soils use. And for instance, well, there are examples in the topic text that you can go and to have a more details on what we mean here, and also the importance of which kind of stakeholders that have to be included, that are of course citizens, and apart from the other normal stakeholders from Living Lab, but citizens should be considered. Another point that is highlighted is the consideration of soil literacy activities for citizens, including, for instance, agroecology or permaculture. And then while working on soil sealing, the projects that would choose to work on this specific objective number 3 should identify urban specific monitoring methods. And this, as explained again in the topic text, is in connection with the Copernicus program. And as I just said, well, the rest is very similar: establishing baselines, monitoring frameworks, indicators, taking care of long-term sustainability strategies, demonstrating really the economic value of the solutions to land managers. So this is something in common between both topics. So something else in common between both topics is what I will show in next slide, and this a table that has been introduced in this work program, which all applicants have to fill in when with their proposals. It is in section 1, so the point of methodology of part B of the proposal. And this table aims at gathering aspects of the living labs that are really key and that form part of the project of living labs. And so for each of the living labs of your project, you will have to fill in this information. So these questions have to be filled in. So we're not adding any information. It's not extra, it's simply summarizing what you will propose in your proposal of living labs, and following simply the requirements of the topic text. So nothing is different from what is explained in the topic text. So we found this was a very useful way to summarize the characteristics of the living labs, and will help a lot applicants of living lab proposals to better describe and better understand how the living labs and their characteristics will be considered in the whole project. So I think with this I finish my presentation, and I give the floor to my colleague Maria José. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paola. I think with this overview, we understood, we have a good understanding on the soil mission, on the living labs and lighthouses criteria, and on the specific topics that are dedicated this year to set up soil health living labs and lighthouses. And now we are gonna deep dive better into the application and understanding how to prepare the proposal. And so I welcome Maria José Amaral from REA, Research Program Manager of REA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dolinda. So next slide. So HEA is the European Research Executive Agency. So we are, next slide, responsible for the mission SOILL implementation in practice, the projects, the evaluations, and we collaborate with the mission secretariat and the colleagues in DG Agri and in other DGs for the implementation of the mission. So my presentation today is based on the main aspects that you need to keep in mind when you are preparing a proposal, but also on the results of an analysis that we carried on the 2023 proposal. So there were 2 topics already open in 2023, and we digged a little bit into the proposals, what was there, and what could be also potential areas of improvement in future proposals. This also takes in account that, as you've seen from what Paola presented, while we were evaluating the 2023 proposals, the colleagues were finalizing the text for the 2024 topics. So we were able to already reflect on some of the findings so that they could already incorporate them on the topic. So one of the first things I would ask you is to really read attentively the topic. Sometimes there are very small changes, but that answer to some aspects that we detected were maybe not fully well interpreted for the 2023. So we strive to improve the topic so that we also can have better quality proposals. Next slide. And next slide. So I will just very briefly go through the key elements of the proposal template and of the Horizon Europe, and of which the mission SOILL is part of. So just in general, any legal entity, regardless of its place of establishment, can participate in Horizon Europe proposals. And the difference is that not everyone can be funded. So the ones that can be funded are organizations from member states, from the overseas countries and territories, countries that are associated to Horizon Europe, and low and middle income countries. And the lists are always updated. Also, the International European Research Organizations, the lists of the countries and the countries that are associated are updated and available online, so you can check if you have the doubts on this. Any other legal entity not from one of these groups can only be funded if it's considered that it's exceptionally it brings something exceptional to the project and to the proposal. And this exceptionality is both evaluated, but needs also to be justified in the proposal. If not, in principle, they are not eligible to receive funding. So they can come, but with their own funding. In terms of partners, we talk about beneficiaries, associated partners that don't have funding and do not sign the grant agreement, and affiliated partners, which are entities affiliated to an existing beneficiary. Then, as you will see, we have different types of third parties, and specifically for this topic, we also have the opportunity to provide support to third parties through a special type of funding. Next slide. So in terms of the proposal template, we have 3 main parts. Part A, online, where you provide the general information on the proposal, where you have to fill all the participants. And here, very importantly, I would talk about, in terms of the participants, their role and the researchers that are involved, the achievements and projects or activities, because this is what evaluators have to assess also the expertise and capacity of the consortium to deliver the work, and of course the budget of the proposal being a key element, and the distribution between the different partners. On part B, we have what we call the technical part, so where excellence, impact, and quality of efficiency of implementation, and the different sections that compose the proposal. This has a 45-page limit, and it's the key aspect of the proposal. And then we have the options to include annexes, which is for the financial support to third parties annex in case the applicants are using this type of instrument. These annexes are not for letters of support and are not for providing extra information on the proposal. In fact, any information that is included in the annexes is disregarded if there is an attempt to complement the information on Part B. And next slide. So something that I think not enough people spend the time reading is on the technical part, on what we call the Part B. There are the rules for the template, and this defines both the size of the font as well as the size of all the formatting aspects of the template. It is very important that these are respected because if not, it creates, if very small font is used, it creates an imbalance towards the other applicants, and we have to request that proposals are changed, which is not ideal for anyone. I can tell you it's not easy to change the font and try to put all information in 45 pages if originally these rules have not been respected. There's also an important section of definitions that really provides a very clear overview of what are a result, what is an outcome, what is an impact, what is a risk. So it's important to read this to not confuse the elements. This is not changing substantially compared to Horizon 2020, but maybe there are changes compared to national programs where some applicants might also be part of proposals. And then in Part B, there's also a detailed explanation of what is expected in each part of the text in it. There's even an indication of the number of pages that should be dedicated to each section. So it's important also to attentively read and understand what is expected to be delivered under each section. And next slide. And why do we talk so much about these sections, or why am I talking so much about the template? Is because these sections mimic the evaluation criteria. So there are these are the main places in a proposal where an expert will go for information about what the proposed work is done. And keep in mind, we always assess the proposed work against the scope of the topic. So a brilliant proposal that it's not satisfying all the elements of the topic, that is not answering to the topic, will not be brilliant in the end of the evaluation. So keep in mind the different sections, how they link with the evaluation, how they link with the instructions that you have to fill them in. Next slide. So where do you start when you have to think about a proposal? And really what I have here in this slide is the project intervention logic. So the needs are identified in the topic. What is the expectation? Why is this needed? And then it's on your side to define what are the objectives that you are going to put in place to answer to the needs that are identified? What are the approach and work plan that you will put? So what are the activities that you will develop? What are the resources that you dedicate to this activity? And what are also the results that you expect? The results is not something that comes as a consequence of the activities, but also that defines the activities that you want to carry, because they are at the basis of your project. Then when you have your results, together with your dissemination exploitation measures, you will ensure that these results can contribute to the expected outcomes that are defined for the topic and to the mission impacts, at least to one of the mission impacts. And in this, you have maybe an easy task because one of the mission impacts is related with the creation of the living labs also. So next slide. So here again, thinking about what are your results is key. Thinking about to whom your results are useful, and then thinking about how your results will contribute to the expected outcomes, which we talk about these midterm impacts, which are achieved by the uptake, deployment, and or use of your project results by the relevant target groups that you wish to target, and your contributions to the mission impacts. And here we talk about the wider long-term effects on society, the economy, and science enabled by the outcomes of R&I investments. So the expected outcomes are defined at the level of the topic because, can you please go back? Because they are what all the projects that are funded under a topic are expected to contribute. It's not something for a project alone to achieve, but for all the projects under that topic to contribute to. And the mission impacts are, of course, for the entire mission. So for the entire group of projects, again, you are not expected to deliver directly one of the mission impacts. Next slide. So in terms of key principles, of course, the first one, and why it's also here, read attentively the topic, read attentively all the conditions that apply, from the eligibility to the legal and financial setup. Then keep in mind that your proposal will be read by several people, will be evaluated by different people. So it's important that you are relevant and you show that you have understood well the topic and the political context and priorities, why Paola was also presenting you the mission, how it all sits together, the different projects that are already funded, and what we aim to achieve. Be simple and convincing. So the message should be clear, straightforward, and assertive. Write with the evaluators in mind. Make sure that everything that you state, there are facts, there are figures that you can back up your statements. And I think we will come back to this again, but I would really reinforce the need, particularly when we are talking about your contributions to the expected outcomes and your expected impacts, to show on what basis have you calculated your estimates for contributions, and show what are your baselines, what are your benchmarks that you are using to say, we are going to be able to contribute this much. And then be complete, and then ensure that you really meet all the conditions, and particularly as so important and key to this topic, the multi-actor approach and involvement of all the actors. Next slide. So in terms of tips and tricks, so as I mentioned to you, we did this exercise of analyzing all the proposals, and we also did an exercise of analyzing why proposals did not have a higher score as they could. So we studied the shortcomings and the significant weaknesses, and we tried to see what were the key points that were not as good as they could be. And on the basis of that, and on the basis of the topic, we identified key areas where proposals can improve. This that I'm presenting here today is summarized in the fact sheet that we made available. So please do consult this fact sheet, do go back to it, use it as a guidance also while you are rather either writing your proposal from the scratch, or if you are taking a proposal that last year did not make it to be selected, if you want to improve it, see how this can also help you improve these existing proposals. So clearly at the level of the objectives, they are not always clear, measurable, or achievable, and many times they were not sufficiently explaining the rationale for the selection of the proposed living labs and the soil health challenges where the proposals were focusing. So why were you thinking about these living labs in these regions? What are the needs there? What are the soil health challenges that are facing? So there sometimes this justification was missing. So it looked like some living labs had been randomly selected and put together in a proposal. Then, of course, these projects, these proposals are being funded within the missions. So for us, it's very important that they are linked with one of the mission soil specific objectives. So you should also explain to which one or which ones it is linked, and how overall this work will contribute to the soil health improvement. That's what we want within the mission, to have this contribution to a better soil health by 2030. So it is important to have this context with the mission expressed. When we go directly to the living labs that are proposed within a project, it's important to describe and to explain the cooperation process between the actors within each living lab and across the proposed living labs. Again, why are these living labs put together? How are you going to ensure that the co-creation, the co-collaboration, the co-assessment will work within the network of the living labs of your project? While making sure that the perspectives and needs of stakeholders, landowners, managers, and citizens are involved in an inclusive way in all stages of the proposal. In terms of the innovations for soil health or on the practices, outline how will they be novel? What is the innovative part of what you are doing, and how, again, they are co-designed, co-implemented, and co-assessed in the living labs. We ask you to establish soil health baselines for each living lab. There, it is important that you show us also that there is a good methodology for the indicators, both to assess the soil health improvements as well as the solutions viability. In terms of results findings, already Paola told you about what is happening in the mission. Again, here, how are you going to build on what is there? You are not a research project that will come up with a solution from zero. You are a research project that is expected to demonstrate how the solutions can be adapted to the local context. So are you using solutions that are already tested, that are already being developed in other projects and taking them in the living labs? Think about this and how you are going to build on the work that is already ongoing. And then, a very important, formulate strategies for the living labs financial and organization sustainability beyond the project timeline. So the goal of the mission is not just to fund 100 living labs, is to have 100 living labs that will be there for the future, ensuring the transition to healthy soils. So it is important to demonstrate that you know how this will be able to stay beyond the EU funding. And so ensuring, of course, the knowledge transfer, but also their sustainability. Next slide. In terms of impact, so here is an issue that many proposals, not only the living labs, but many proposals struggle with, how to really show how your project results will be used to contribute to the expected outcomes of the topic. And this comes from explaining very clearly your pathways to impact. So the different steps of how you go from your results to doing this contribution, and then estimating the contribution that we will do and the scale and significance of this contribution. And here, what I mentioned before, the importance of the baselines, of the benchmarks, and of the assumptions you have proposed beyond the proposed contributions should be provided to show that, you know, you are estimating, you are not being maybe too ambitious, not with a very reduced ambition. You are in the right point because you know where you start and to what you can deliver. In terms of the mission impact, again, here the results is more a broader contribution at EU level, society, economic growth, job creation, or progression in a scientific field. When we talk about also the contribution to the expected outcomes, we are not talking only about what you will achieve in your own living labs by having the work that is being done on the project, but how you go beyond, how you consider the broader application, scaling up, and transferability of your results beyond the living labs, and particularly in the regions where they are implemented. And in this, it's important to elaborate how collaborations with other actors in this region should also be established to foster the effective uptake of the soil health solutions that you will work within your projects. Then, of course, in a perfect world, everything would be perfect, but it's not always a perfect world. So there are external barriers that you are not the responsibility of the project, but that you are aware that they exist and that you should propose comprehensive solutions, also how you overcome them. So also think about these external barriers that can limit the contributions that you can make to the expected outcomes or the impacts. And then in terms of the dissemination and exploitation measures and the communication also where relevant, they are key to ensure and to facilitate the uptake of your results. So here they really need to be designed, and you really need to think about who do you want to uptake the different parts, different types of results that you are producing and the different information that you have, and ensure that you have measures that are catering to their specific needs. And here, when we are talking about the actors, we are also talking about the actors within your living labs and, of course, in the regions where they are operating. Important in that frame also to put strategies that can influence policy and the long-term sustainability of your results and per extension of your living labs. And it's important also to ensure that you are putting in place a monitoring framework so that you can see what works, what doesn't work during project implementation, and adjust. So it's not just we will do these 10 measures and help us that everything goes as planned. No, after year one or after the first 18 months, how is it going? Have we been successful? Are we being successful with these 10 measures, or we need 10 others or 5 others, or we need to be more ambitious, or we need to be really thinking about it and showing that you have already thought about how you will monitor the effectiveness of your measures. It's also a key point in your proposal. Next slide. In terms of implementation, so here is where the work is mostly on your side. So you really need to show that your plan is of good quality and effective. What the evaluators really look at, how the different work packages and tasks come together, that they have the right level of detail, that we can understand what you are doing within, of course, the page limits that you have to explain what are the activities. But it should be clear. Avoid repeating. Sometimes we have the feeling when the proposals are read that there's a lot of repetition. We don't need a lot of repetition. We need the right level of detail on the right part of the proposal, on the excellence when you are justifying the approach, and then on the implementation when you are going to say how things will be done, when things will be done. And on the when, an important aspect to consider is the timing for all the co-creation processes. It takes time. So you should really envision to take it very well in the planning of your activities and of your tasks. And then when we go to the resources, and here we talk both about the person months that the different partners have, as well as the resources that you have in terms of budget to do different activities of other goods and services, or for travel costs. These should be well allocated to the work packages and the living labs in line with the work to be carried. If relevant, you should also include tasks to manage the financial support to third parties, while ensuring that all the information comes in the annex. And we will talk about more of the financial support to third parties later. It is important that here also you detail the collaboration plans with SOILL that Giulia will present a little bit later, and with other mission SOILL and soil health living labs. So we have a network, and we want that this network of living labs, this network of projects on the mission soils works and delivers something for European soils, and even broader than European soils. So there are a lot of expectations that you do work together, and you should also allocate resources for this collaboration. Risks, this really difference between barriers that we are talking about. really risks that are connected with your specific activities and your the risks that come from your tasks, from your partners, from your implementation of your project and the achievement of your objectives. Think about risks related with field work, actors engagement, etc. that can cause an issue for your project. And of course, not only about thinking about the risks, but also proposing adequate mitigation measures to address them. And then when we talk about partners, it's important that they are complementary, that they bring together all the necessary expertise, and that each of them has enough resources to carry the activities that are allocated to them in a good way. So again, thinking about each of the living labs that you are putting together in your project, ensure that they have necessary resources, skills, and expertise to deliver on the work. Next slide. So talking about the financial support to third parties, because we know that I think was 2/3 of the proposals last year planned to use it. It's not mandatory, so you do not necessarily need to use it, but you can make use of it if it's the best approach for your objectives and your project and your activities. Why is it there? It's there to allow the involvement of smaller stakeholders, including farmers, businesses, or civil society in the living labs to deliver on the actions that you are carrying on the living labs. It's not for doing something else, to providing a support on the living lab. It's really to allow the involvement of these smaller actors in the living labs, because for them it would be too much of an administrative burden to be brought as partners. Or so think about why you want to bring, who you want to bring as partners, who you want to bring as within the financial support to third parties, or with the other options that Paola mentioned in her presentation, subcontracting, contracting. There are many options. The financial support to third parties is just one more of them that will help get this active involvement of the smaller actors. They can be given in the form of grants only, with or if duly justified without a call for proposals for these third parties. The costs for the financial support must be identified in the budget table and declared as actual costs, and one or more project beneficiaries can be providing the financial support to third parties in a project, and they are the ones that are responsible for the proper use of the funding by the financial support to third parties recipients. Next slide. So where do the financial support to third parties must be included? So I already mentioned it. First is in part A in the budget table under the relevant category. So there it should be identified how much budget you are going to provide to the financial support to third parties. In part B, so the activities related with the awarding process, and with the awarding process, this is equivalent to if you organize a call or if you don't organize a call, they should be covered by one or more tasks of the work plan. It's an activity that you are going to do, that you're going to launch a call, to not launch a call, but to do the contract. So it is an activity that should be reflected on your work plan. And then it should be explained where relevant in the methodology. There is a question related with, are you planning to use financial parties to third parties in the table that Paola presented, in the activities and the budget, and if relevant in the risk. So there are issues associated with doing the financial support to third party that benefit you, that maybe are creating a risk for the project, and this should be reflected wherever it is relevant in the proposal. In terms of the annex, this is what needs to be included, and as a baseline, again, independently, if you are doing a call or a no call, you should explain the objectives and the expected results. You should provide a close list of the type of activities that qualify for support, the type of persons or categories that can benefit, the justification for the maximum budget per partner, the details on how you will ensure that information on the grants is publicly available, and justification of how the conditions in Annex B of the general annexes, and this refers to transparency, conflict of interest, confidentiality, will be ensured. for the financial support to third parties in general. Something to keep in mind, last year we had published a couple of frequently asked questions on the financial support to third parties associated to the topics. We are also working this year on these questions, and they will also be available so you can read more in detail. We are trying really to aim to provide as much clarity as possible on this, because we know it creates a lot of questions for the different applicants and for the also national contact points and other people that are involved in supporting the applicants in their proposals. Next slide. So I'm not going to go here in detail, but one thing that we see very commonly confused in our proposals is dissemination with exploitation with communication. So we'll talk about dissemination when we say about sharing the results with those that can use them. We talk about exploitation, about the use of results, and it's not about only commercial use, but also in further research or public policy making. And we talk about communication when it's in a more broad and general category of promoting the action and its results in a general way, including to the media and the public. Next slide. So some final considerations from my part, and these are this could be applicable to any type of proposal. Define well your key objectives. Be ambitious but realistic. It's important to show that you understand the context on which you are creating your living labs. Provide sufficient detail on the approach and methodology. Create links with previous networks, projects, previous research. Don't forget about open science and the gender dimension. At level of impact, consider all the expected outcomes and relevant mission impacts. Define well what are your key results and quantify and measure your contribution. Think about the scale, the significance of your contributions, and also of the benchmarks, the baselines, etc. Consider seriously the existing barriers. In terms of implementation, try to provide a precise planning with well-timed tasks and activities, and well-timed and well-defined also, maybe it's missing here. Justify the resources distribution overall and among the partners, and particularly important among the living labs in your project. And demonstrate how your consortium brings a complementary expertise. Next slide, which I think is really the last one. So I hope that you have already started preparing your proposals, because you are always late. Plan ahead, read carefully all the documents, be involved, be realistic, and best of luck for all the applicants. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria Jose. I think this presentation was indeed extremely useful to understand how to prepare the application. And now to continue to understand and to gather all the knowledge that we need to prepare the proposals, I will invite Giulia Campodonico, Head of Projects of ENoLL, but also SOILL Startup Coordinator, who will explain how the funded living lab and lighthouses will be supported once they will be funded, and how they can continue and gather all the support to continue their activities. So Giulia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here today. As Dolinda mentioned, I'm the coordinator of both SOILL and SOILL Startup Project. That are at the core of the support services and structure that will facilitate the work of the soil health living labs and lighthouses for the entire duration of the mission. Next, the way we have designed SOILL, it's really to consider an overall support to the living labs through different activities all across the macro themes that the living labs may need support on. So starting from the living labs methodologies to more soil technical aspects, as well as many other transversal and cross-cutting skills and thematics that are at the basis for the correct implementation of the of the project the Living Labs are funded in, but also side activities that are at the core and side skills that are at the core of the Living Labs methodologies. And all the driving principles that we have identified are really aimed to deliver SOILL as a one-stop support structure, so a central point for support to all the 100 Living Labs and Lighthouses, but also to the external community that can gain information and a centralized point of information on the Living Labs. Moving to the next slide, it's important to make a distinction between SOILL and SOILL Startup. So SOILL is the framework partnership agreement that has initiated in 2024 with a network of more than 49 partners all across Europe and with well connection also the international level to support the scalability and the matchmaking of Living Labs with in the international dimension. And the framework partnership agreement will support the entire duration of the mission through different specific projects. The first one being SOILL Startup with a limited number of partners that and this project is operating for the first 2 years, so 24 this year and 25. Moving to the next slide, SOILL, so the overall framework partnership aims to set up and run the one-stop support structure, of course, in collaboration with 100 Living Labs and Lighthouses, but also in alignment with the mission SOILL, its implementation, and all the other actions to ensure the co-created, user-centered, harmonized, reliable, impactful, and replicable and sustainable lead by the Living Labs and Lighthouses of the mission goals. More in details for what concerns the first 2 years. If you can click, thank you. The goal of the first 2 years is really to co-design and launch this platform. And in particular, one click more, we aim to do this in participatory collaboration with the first waves of Living Labs and Lighthouses. So those we have already initiated our work with the Living Labs that have been selected by the 2023 topics. And we expect also support with the second wave. So the Living Labs selected and arising from the 2024 topics that the colleagues from DG Agri and REA presented. So this is the first step that will enable us to co-design and work together and define the specific, more in detail, the specific services and support activities the Living Labs will need to ensure the actual deployment of the and full functioning of the structure in the upcoming years once the network will grow further. Moving to the next slide. So what is important for SOILL is to consider, first of all, the driving principles. As I briefly mentioned, these are the core of they are the basis of our temple pillar and structures, but also at the core of our objectives. All our services are designed to ensure that all the Living Labs and Lighthouses are using user-centered co-creation. They work in an harmonized approach, despite the different peculiarities, land use types, mission objective focus, or geographical location. All the Living Labs needs to still be harmonized and work alongside along the mission implementation criteria for Living Labs to ensure their knowledge sharing and collaboration that will lead to high quality results, impactful results, and also to a higher replicability of the solutions that are developed within the Living Labs and demonstrated in Lighthouses in view of the long-term sustainability. For this reason, we have developed a set of different activities, 6 macro activities that are going to that I'm going to present more in details in the next slide. So the first starting point is the coordination. So of course, as a support structure, we want to ensure a proper coordination of the Living Labs and Lighthouses in a centralized manner. So we will identify specific point of contacts for all the Living Labs for direct integration and easy identification also of the supports and communication with us. But also we will have the Living Labs will have dedicated priority contact, easy access to information, and dedicated support services. In parallel, our goal is also to support the promotion of Living Labs and Lighthouses, their work, their activities, and their results. So, of course, every project have already or will develop, and every proposal will deliver their own dissemination and promotion campaign. But as a centralized point of information, we will support further these activities. We will have a catalog of the Living Labs that will also be visible through an online map. We will have also a centralized point for all the news, updates, informations from the Living Labs. So to have really a centralized point of information. Furthermore, we will deliver capacity building, training activities, both online and in person for the Living Labs that can be supported further by tailored mentoring and a dedicated help desk only for the soil health Living Labs and Lighthouses to really support the growth on the different thematics or specific aspects identified from the needs assessment that we are already carrying out, for example, with the first wave, and that will be updated so to ensure to meet the needs of the entire network. Moving to the next, knowledge sharing, as I mentioned before, is at the core. So it's really important that the Living Labs work together. So not only within their own project, but also with a wider network. And SOILL will facilitate this aspect, both through online session, dedicated events, and with the launch of working groups on specific thematics that can support further the knowledge sharing across identified themes, again, stemming from the needs and specific aspects of the Living Labs. Then moving to the next, we are also monitoring, of course, if we want to ensure the growth of the Living Labs and to see how the Living Labs are contributing to the mission objectives, but also if they are continuing and aligning to the mission criteria, we are establishing now a monitoring framework. So Living Labs will be requested to regularly report on their progresses and their evolvement. And from this, we will be able to, on one side, report back to the mission, also to monitor the mission implementation, but also report back to feed our capacity building in line with the monitor, evaluate, and learn principles, and also draw recommendations for future applicants or for the Living Lab itself to understand what are the common, more difficult or sensitive aspects to be taken into consideration. Finally, we most of our activities will be defined in the SOILL Hub, an online platform that is currently under finalization for the launch during the summer. And here, all the Living Labs will be able to provide information on their Living Labs, on their experimental sites, on their lighthouses. All this information will be summarized in a public map and atlas, but also on the Hub will be the place for a matchmaking and marketplace with the wider SOILL community and future applicants or future investors or collaborators, other projects, to really ensure the long-term view of the Living Labs and opening of collaborations. We will also have a knowledge repository with all the training material, but also all relevant resources that can support the further work and growth of the Living Labs. And here will also be a place for communication, exchange, and promotion, for example, of key events organized by the Living Labs and Lighthouses, or even for the call for financial support to third parties that Maria Jose presented before. Moving to the next slide. So who are we offering it to? So as you could see from my previous slides, our main target are the Living Labs and Lighthouses. And these encompass all the different actors within the Living Labs. So the managers, the stakeholders, the partners, the different projects that are carried out within the Living Labs. But this is not it. We are also collaborating, of course, in close relation with the mission SOILL, with the Secretariat, the Mission Board, or the Mission Implementation platform to ensure the alignment of our services to the directions of the mission. And also we are collaborating, next please, so with other mission projects. We don't aim to coordinate the different mission projects, but our goal is really to understand which results from existing mission projects, mission or beyond, can be of relevance for the Living Labs and Lighthouses, and how they can benefit of the results for mutual collaboration. And finally, we aim to collaborate with this wider community in soil aspects, wider community on Living Lab themes. This, for example, could include also collaboration with the agroecology partnership, but also with investors, policymakers, international actors, to really support the growth of the Living Labs and Lighthouses. And moving to the next, so here you can see a summary of what I already presenting on what we are offering. So training and support, monitoring and guidelines, collaboration, visibilities, and opportunities for the future collaborations. But all these, of course, entail some requests also from our side that the applicants should take into consideration when drafting their application. So first of all, as you can see, for us to build support services that are really meeting your needs, we need to understand the needs of the applicants, and this is of the Living Labs and Lighthouses. Sorry, this will be, for example, needs on training aspects or needs on collaboration and common interest, and furthermore, then to really fine-tune the monitoring and not create a double burden on the Living Labs. We aim also to match the monitoring with the internal monitoring on indicators that the Living Labs and Lighthouses have indicated or should indicate in their proposal. And for this, we will collect also the list of quantitative and qualitative indicators to help us improve the monitoring framework. And of course, feedbacks are essential for us, feedbacks on the events, on the trainings, and all the activities we are supporting for us to improve and really co-design together the support services. Then in order to promote the Living Labs, we need profiles, updated news, pictures, and videos that can be shared with us for a wider promotion at within the SOILL community. And all this, of course, is reflected into time and money. So time for really dedicating to spend the activities for performing the reporting, attending the events, provide information, filling the surveys. And all this is translated also into money of the cost of the personnel and the time spent on collaborating with us, but also travels to the different events we are proposing in SOILL. So in particular, here we presented a table, if you can click on the next, please, that summarize the macro activities, the planned frequencies from when the activities are going to start, and the format, so distinguishing between online and present, and the budget effort or potential person months and time you need to consider when drafting your budget, to help you better define in your proposal and ensure that you have a necessary envelope of your budget to collaborate with SOILL. It's important to remind that the activities of SOILL are not mandatory, probably except the self-assessment. It is also a requirement, if I'm not mistaken, in your in the topic, but it's important that all these designs, since all these services, since they are designed on your needs, will really be helpful. And so we recommend to dedicate enough budget and resources in the development of your activities. Also be aware, as I mentioned before, additional activities and specific grant agreement implementing and running this SOILL support structure will be developed in the upcoming year. So new activities may be coming up based on the actual needs we are identifying now in the Living Labs. And so I really recommend to be generous in a way, not exaggerating, but really also being ready for eventual new activities or services that can come up over the years. And with this, I think it's my last slide. What I really recommend is to visit our web portal. Here you will be able to register on our newsletter and join the SOILL community for receiving more dedicated information over the years. But there you can already find video appeals on and more detailed information on SOILL, our services and activities, and already a centralized point of news and updates on the key actions, both from us and from the future living labs that are just kickstarting their work, and new activities, new features are coming up over the summer. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Giulia. I see that also some more questions are coming in the chat also about SOILL and SOILL startup. So we will have time for questions in just in a few minutes. We will now conclude this presentation part of the webinar to give you some more information about what the NATI00NS project is doing and will do this year to support applicants in applying for the Living Lab topics. Many of you, I believe, have already attended the national engagement event. So we have organized on more than 40 events in European and associated countries in national language to support the application and to give the information on the Living Lab topics. In case you want to review the information provided during this webinar, you can check the NATI00NS website, so you can see the recording, but also you can check if in your country the events have not been organized yet, and you can still register. We have produced fact sheet and e-learning materials to give you the information on the specific creation of and setup of living labs on the different land use types, so characteristic of the agriculture, industry, urban and forestry living labs, and also on the characteristic of the Living Lab topics that were presented also today. And this material can be accessed in the on the NATI00NS website. In NATI00NS, we have a dedicated help desk page. So in the help desk, you can access three main types of support: the FAQ, frequently asked questions, the web form where you can submit your own question, and the coaching. So if you can see here, you have you're able to already review if your doubts has already been asked before in the frequently asked questions. In the support web form, you can submit your question. We will come back to you with an appropriate answer. And then there is a page dedicated to mentors, and you can check if a mentor has been identified in your country, and the mentors can help you in developing your proposal and accompany you in this phase. Then we have produced webinars and capacity building material also concerning different specific topics. Last year, we have produced webinars dedicated to how to set up a living lab and governance and business model for setting up a living lab. So we invite you to rewatch the recording of these webinars to have a better and deeper understanding on these specific themes. But this year we are still producing many webinars as the one we are attending today, but also future webinars will be still organized as on the 25th of June next week, about improving soil health, a systemic approach for co-creating living labs in urban and industrial environments. And then also on the 1st of July, there will be a webinar dedicated to forestry and semi-natural lands, focusing on the Balkans and neighboring countries. So you will find the links in the chat, and you are invited to subscribe also for the next webinars. And then also in the NATI00NS website, you can access the recording of thematic events that we have organized and published early this year about specific teams on soil teams and cross-cutting teams that will help you to prepare your application. And finally, there is a matchmaking platform. So there is a platform dedicated to support applicants in identifying stakeholders and partner consortia to create your consortium and submit your application. This is active for the whole period of the mission. And so what you have to do is to register, create your profile, and make sure that you describe your expertise to make your profile attractive to others, and also express which kind of collaboration you're looking for. And then you can search for opportunities that maybe are already available, about offers of other participants of the platform that already maybe published the type of expertise they are looking for, and then again highlight what you can offer. And so in the matchmaking platform, you can filter the type of organization and companies and academia you're looking for, the type of participants, and there is a dedicated space for marketplace to organize bilateral meetings with a potential partner. As it was presented before, there is a fact sheet that the Commission produced to support applicants in prepare their applications. I will not repeat, but here you can see the QR code where you can access this material. And then now it's time for question. So I will first address the question that we have already received from you through the registration form. We have received many questions, mainly about 3 topics: the living labs, the lighthouses and the sites, then the application process, and the soil mission. I see many more questions have been addressed in the Q&A box. I'm not sure we will have the time to address them all, but I'm sure that already this moment of addressing the questions pre-submitted will help you gather and have a better understanding of and clarification of your doubts. So let's start with the first set of questions, and here I invite our guests and speakers to jump in and to address these questions. So the first one is about clarification on the experimental sites. This was a question that I think was also shared in the Q&A box. So maybe I invite, I'm not sure if Maria Jose or Paula can give us a better explanation and an additional explanation of the experimental sites within the Living Lab.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Dolinda. I can take this question. And indeed, I see that it has been also repeated in the box, in the Q&A box. So it's important to clarify. So experimental sites. So for the living lab, for experimental sites of the living labs, according to the mission SOILL, their characteristics are mainly, as we said many times, that they have to be real life places. And individual places, so individual sites where the co-creation process takes place. So it's the physical place where this process happens. So it's where specific soil management operations occur, activities occur, but also co-creation and innovation. Sorry. So these are the main characteristics. I would say also, if we can see it from the side of, this is like the local lower level, as we used to call them, the micro level, at which a living lab operates. And then it is insufficient number of these smaller levels or of these sites where then the full experimentation and coordination of with other partners take place. Then we go to the meso or the macro level, so to a project or to the whole landscape where Living Lab takes place. But the site is the smallest. The characteristic is that the smallest place that is in real life places and individual sites. I hope that was clear.
Thank you so much, Paola. Yes, indeed. I think it was, but anyhow, you can still use the Q&A if, in case you need to have additional clarification. And we invite you also to use the help desk of Nashuns in case we don't have time to address all the questions now. But yeah, thank you so much, Paola. We will go to the next question that we received. Should a new technology be tested in a living lab, or is the Lighthouse the right setting for it? So
yes, I will continue answering to these questions. Yes, so this concerning the testing of new technologies, the ideal place is the living lab, indeed. So the testing in real life, I would say real life or real world environments, and again, including the co-creation with all stakeholders. And in that place, and why it's important to that this testing takes place in the living labs, because there is where also iteration can happen. So feedback from the users that is crucial in order to improve the technology or whatever we are testing, and involving again all the participants. So I think the lighthouses are, as we define them, as more individual sites for demonstration of these technologies. But the technologies need to be already proven or undergone an initial testing in the living labs. That's the main idea. And then I see, if I may, because the third question is really related to the first one a bit. And I can read it. It says, can some areas, forest farms owned by research institutes where research and experiments are conducted, be considered suitable for one of the living lab sites? And so if I may, I would like to say that in general, when we talk about research organization sites, we don't see them as being adequate for being a living lab site. Neither a lighthouse, and the reason is that they are not real life sites. So we cannot guarantee that all the processes that happen in a real life site will take place in a research organization site. And concerning the lighthouses, the same thing. As so this exemplarity with regards to a certain practice may not really happen if you're not in a real field. So so the contribution from research organizations to the living lab work is important, and of course it's very important, but from other points of view. Of course, the scientific inputs, providing technical support, exchange knowledge, practical information, and more academic information with the researcher, and also essentially the provision of research infrastructure, but from other type of infrastructure, for instance, laboratories or infrastructure that are not really the real life sites, which need to be in a farm or in another place. So with that, I wanted to show it. It's linked to the first question, and of course, Maria Jose, please jump in to complete or correct anything that I have said.
No, I would just like to reinforce something that it's really because within these research organization sites, the priorities usually are for the research, for the science, and of maybe developing a new technology or testing something, and not so much for all the actors. And this is why, as Paolo was saying, they are not considered real life sites, because there are the definition of the priorities is different.
Thank you so much.
You.
It was it was good to clarify. And then we go to the next question. Do the solutions proposed in a living lab have to reach a certain technology readiness level?
I will take this one as well. So for these two topics that that we have now in Work Program 24 and also from the previous one, we propose RIAs, so Research and Innovation Actions. And by definition, this type of action does not require a specific technology readiness level. But in the topic text, we do not require a specific TRL, but by definition, if you go to the Horizon Europe basics, typically a RIA reaches TRL 5 and 6. So this means that technologies or solutions are validated and demonstrated in real environments. So I can say that in terms of living labs, this is very specific topics where the co-created innovation in these living labs are expected to have really practical and market potential, of course. So the specificity of this project is that they are also taking or talking about management practices and methodologies that then can be transferred and be adopted by land managers. So this is, I think, the characteristics specific of these projects.
Thank you so much. Great. Then we go to the next questions. These are more about the application process. So when do it needed to include stakeholders through the financial support to third party? This was explained in the presentation today of Maria Jose. I'm not sure if you want to add.
I think I can complement a little bit here because I see this question from two angles. On one, when do you need to use or when would it be good to use the financial support to third party? And also from a temporal point of view, like if you are planning to use the financial support to third parties, when at which stage should you think about it? So of course, as I mentioned in the presentation, the when is if relevant to facilitate and encourage the involvement of the small actors in the living lab activity. So in the 4, 5, 6 living labs that you are proposing with the project, and when you believe that this is the best way to involve the smaller actors because maybe they could not join the consortium in another way due to the heavy administrative burden. Then more on the temporal scale. So you can already have pre-identified at the proposal level who are these smaller actors, and you would go maybe for financial support to third parties without a call for proposals because you already know who are the actors that you want to engage. And this already at the proposal, you can describe and speak about these actors. Or if you still don't know, you know that you want a number of actors within a specific region, this will come during the proposal implementation when you launch also the call for proposals for the third parties. And here the most important thing to think when you are talking about bringing actors during the project implementation is that it should be done early on to allow that they are fully involved since the beginning of the activities in the co-design and co-creation processes. So you need to make use of the time that your project has to ensure that these processes start early on. So therefore, you actually also need to plan for this quite early in the project implementation.
Thank you so much. And I think then this answer in some way is also related to the second question. How is it possible to engage farmer in the project proposal? So again, it was mentioned before. I'm not sure if you want to complement.
I can complement, and then Paola also if she wants. So yes, it is possible to engage farmers in the project proposals as partners directly, as associated partners, as contractors, as subcontractors, and through the financial support to third parties. So here it is about having the local actors. So if your local actors for your proposal are farmers, you should of course engage them, and you need to find the best way to do it for your proposal and your objectives.
Thank you. Paula, do you want to add something, or?
I think it was clear.
No, definitely. It was mentioned before, but okay. Very good. Thank you so much. We go to the next question that mentioned the work program specifically about the topic, the first topic. Basically, the question is about a specific text. In order to increase the impact and sustainability, applicants are encouraged to explore and test new or combination with existing funding schemes and financial instruments, either public or private. So including, for example, agricultural land, common agricultural policy scheme, and involving, where relevant, the finance provider, such as public authorities or financial institutions and investors. What is its implication in the project proposal? Who would like?
So I will take that one. And again, if there is anything else to complement, my colleague can jump. But indeed, it is important to highlight here is that we're talking about again about RIAs, so research and innovation actions, which means that 100% of the actions or the cost of the actions are reimbursed. So the results of the project need to be achieved with this budget. So what we refer to in the topic text about using or exploring other funding schemes is looking at increasing the impact of the living labs themselves in regions where they are functioning, where they are acting, and also to help in their sustainability. So they need to find a way to remain after the funding of the mission is ended. So this is why we propose to applicants or proposals to explore these other funding mechanisms. And it's just to give an example, but this is just as indication. For instance, to incorporate, if you want to incorporate more sites in one or in more of the living labs of a project with other sources, with other funding. So such as a philanthropic organization that can add a site to one of your living labs. Or there is also this idea of combining the EU funding with other sources, other fundings, in a way that, again, gradually, once the funding from the living lab under the mission SOILL is finishing, you gradually pass to this second source of source, reducing your level of risks. So yes, I think this is a bit the way how we thought that these other further financial sources could help on the living lab topics.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think it was very good to clarify this point. And then we will go to the last three questions about this topic. What is the expected duration of the projects? Would like to, yeah?
Yes, well, here maybe if you want to complement Dolinda, but in general, I think, well, there is no fixed duration, that's for sure. There is no requirement for a specific duration. It depends on the living lab, but normally we're dealing with soil health issues and living labs processes, so this takes really long time. But as we work under a project that is time bounded, I would say that 5 years is what we would expect from this type of project, and that they can start showing some results, because less of that, it's very difficult to show some progress in terms of soil health improvement.
Thank you. Yes, and then is co-financing by partner required in project proposal?
I can take that one. As Paola mentioned before, they are RIAs are 100% cost eligible. So there is no expectation that there is co-financing happening from the partners. But of course, as we know, there are associated partners that can come with their own funds. If they are partners that are not eligible for funding, they can also come with their own funds, but there is no expectation of co-financing.
Thank you. And then I will take the next question. How is it possible to find project partners, coordinators to develop a proposal? Well, is it possible through the matchmaking platform that NATI00NS is managing at the moment? And as I explained before, you can access the platform and register your profile and offer in some way your expertise, but look if already there are some offers and interesting profile that can match your proposal, what are you looking for, and you can have bilateral meetings in the platform to understand if the profile you found, is it really good match, or you want to still look for other stakeholders. You will find the links in the chat, but also in the follow-up email that we will send. And then we'll go to the last two questions that we received about more general about the SOILL mission. And so the first question is about how many SOILL Health Living Labs have been established under the SOILL mission so far. So for this question, maybe I invite Giulia Campodonico from SOILL Startup to answer to this question.
Yes, thank you. So I think the statistics have been shown already before by the Commission colleagues. So there are from the 2023 topics, there have been 25 living labs selected. Now, all of these 25, only 10 have already started their work, and the other 15 are still in the grant agreement preparation phase, and we expect them to start and launch their activities just after the summer. But in the meantime, as I mentioned before, we already started our collaboration and identifying the preliminary needs and information. So as soon as the grant agreement will be signed on all projects, we will have the detailed map with more information on the funded living labs on the SOILL platform.
Thank you so much. Great. And then we go to the last question of the pre-submitted questions. Will other funding opportunities to set up SOILL Health Living Labs be available in the next years? I'm not sure if Paola wants to answer.
Yes, indeed. Yes, of course, the mission SOILL will fund with these consecutive calls until 2027 living lab topics. We'll propose living lab topics to fund living labs projects until we reach the aim of 100 living labs and lighthouses. And as Maria José also explained before, this is just a number, an aim to have these 100 living labs and lighthouses funded by 2030, but the idea is that they remain and they continue their action, their activities to maintain and to recuperate soils. So I think yes, as you just explained, so we have these three phases that I also showed in my presentation. So we start little by little, but if we continue at this pace, by work Project 27 will be the last one funded living labs.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think now I can just stop sharing the screen so that I can also see some of the questions that have been addressed in the Q&A. We don't have a lot of time, but maybe we can address some of them. So one of the
Yeah, I can address the first one. So it's about the total amount or percentage that a project can allocate to the financial support to third parties. There is no total amount or percentage of the budget that is defined. So indeed, this is about what makes sense within the project activities and the project objectives and the actors and the number of actors that you want to engage. So, for example, if a farmer is bringing or regional authority, to not give always the example of farmers, or someone that cannot be part is bringing 2 sites or 5 sites or 10 sites, there is an implication to what, of course, the financial support that they are entitled. But overall, you can dedicate the part of the budget that makes sense for the activities that are to be put in place in the living labs with these third parties.
Thank you. So is there, I see there are a lot of questions we will have to select because we don't have a lot of time. There are some questions about SOILL and SOILL startup, and maybe Giulia, you want to address that one?
Yes, thank you. So the first question is how to involve SOILL in the proposal phase. If you need to reach out to us, no. You can plan different activities and services and connection based on the offer that we already presented. You can take for granted the collaboration with SOILL if your project is going to be selected. So feel free to refer to any of the presented activities and collaboration. Of course, we are happy to support further if needed on clarifications on the activities, and for this you can refer also to our project website. On the second question is on the cooperation with national contact points, for example, of SOILL with national contact points, for example, as speakers in events. Yes, the first 6 months of SOILL have been focused on really on the development of many technical aspects, including the hub and the first activities, but the collaboration with the national contact point is essential for the correct deployment of SOILL and will be developed in the upcoming months. And then 2 questions that are linked, I think. So it's the difference between SOILL and NATI00NS and the support between SOILL that the SOILL will provide to applicants. So first of all, it needs to be remarked that SOILL startups, so the first 2 years of SOILL are mainly focusing on supporting the first 2 waves of soil health living labs. And starting from 2026, we will starting from 2025, apologies, we are slowly taking over the support activities to applicants that are under the development and implementation of NATI00NS. NATI00NS is ending at the end of 2024, and we will take it over for the 2025 calls with some adaptations and clarifications, but this will be communicated in later stage. So for the 2024 calls and for support to applicants to the open topics for living labs, please revert to NATI00NS and not to SOILL. I think these are the major questions that were addressed to SOILL.
Dolinda, I can take, so there's 2 questions still related with the FCTP. So one is asking about the frequently asked questions. So they are not yet published. So they will appear in the coming days on the Funding and Tenders portal. And then I would suggest we go to the question on, there are 2 questions that are interesting, one for me and one for Paola, maybe on the social science research in the experimental side. So obviously for the implementation of the co-creation and the co-design processes, you need social scientists that are able to bring together with the natural scientists and the other actors this participatory approach. But also what you should consider is that in terms of the solutions are not always technological. They might be also at the level of governance, at the level of different types of solutions where social scientists are key to support their implementation, support their code testing, support their code design, and that you also have to consider something that maybe is not given enough attention in the proposals: the viability of the solutions. And this is both from a technical and but also uptake from the end users that can put them in practice, and their economic aspect. So social scientists are also important there to bring these other components besides the participatory approach.
Thank you so much. I see we are running out of time. Maybe let's see if there is time for one or two last questions. Let's see if
I would suggest the one of the lighthouses that is in the
yes.
chat.
So about the lighthouses, I believe, should there be minimum of one lighthouse per living lab, or could there be more lighthouses? For example, 2 lighthouses in one living lab, in other 1 or 2 as well. So it's about understanding the how many lighthouses there should be. I'm not sure if Paula, you want to
I can take that. Yes, I can try to clarify this.
Yeah.
Indeed, this is something that we can read in the implementation plan, that it's expected to reach at least 1 lighthouse per living lab, and this is why that is written there, because it's true that all experimentation sites within a living lab, at the end of the day, they seek to reach this excellence performance, to become a lighthouse, to become a demonstrator of the solutions that they have been working on. So this is an expectation, sorry, but it is not needed to have a minimum 1 lighthouse per living labs. There can be more, there can be less. We say that living labs, that lighthouses, sorry, can be within a living lab or can be outside a living lab. This is also very important. If they are in another area, but they are linked to the living lab by this by the topic, by the needs, sorry, the soil health needs that it is addressing. So indeed, I would say that if a living lab has is exemplary on a specific soil health issue or field, and it can demonstrate that is really good, it can be adapted to the local conditions where the lighthouse is located in that case, and you can really improve the health and communicate it and engage in this peer-to-peer learning. Then they can become lighthouses, and there's no limit on numbers.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Is there any last question that you would like to address? You believe it's relevant? We are out of time now. We are 2 minutes late. As I said, yeah.
Yes, I think there was one about top-down topics, and very shortly, indeed, we expect that there will be that these top-down topics in the next work programs will help to cover geographic and also specific objectives or soil health issues disparities. So we are really working on trying very hard to look at the past to see what has been finance, the proposals that have been already submitted, and see where is the real gap, where are the places that are underrepresented, or the soil health issues that are not tackled at all. And we're trying to adapt the work programs in order to in function of this, and also working with nations to promote better the topics and engage the community in those areas that are more needed.
Thank you so much. I think we are out of time now. So if your questions was not answered and you still have doubts when you prepare your proposal, we really invite you to use the help desk. You will find the link in the chat, and we will come back to you with an answer as soon as possible. So I will say that I thank the speaker for being with us today. It was very valuable for the applicants to get all doubts clarified. And yeah, thank you for your availability. I invite you to follow NATI00NS website for the updates, and to follow, you will receive a follow-up email with all the links. And so I wish you a very nice day, and thank you for attending today.
Thank you very much.